All right, so going to be doing another comic review from a book sent to me by my friend Chris. Thank you as always, brother. Today we're going to be talking about The Last Ronin 2, Re-Evolution. Of course, this is the continuation of The Last Ronin, the very popular Ninja Turtles alternate universe, which is basically Dark Knight Returns with Ninja Turtles. The first book took the comic world by storm. Let's not stand on ceremony here. That comic, The Last Ronin was a great book. It was, it basically was a big shot in the arm. Not to say the Ninja Turtle comics were already killing it before, but this took the Ninja Turtles to another scale of holy crap, this is some really cool stuff. And it also made me go. There was also a part of me, and I'm not gonna lie. I am not gonna lie in this part. I was like, maybe because I was worried after the major in the comic culture of Last Ronin. I was like, all right, IDW. You got something big here. Maybe you can move on from that. No, they wanted to continue it as a franchise, which smart enough was make it a start with a prequel, talk about what happened to Mikey, and also talk about what the possible future of the Turtles, not go out to an outright sequel, which I really liked. I liked that idea, but I was always in the back of my mind. Worried that they were going to go too far. So, does this lose steam? Does this book lose steam and the Last Ronin franchise is over? I don't think so. I do think this is a good book. I do think this is a good book by Kevin Eastman and Tom Waltz, but there are some things that are a problem, and I do think, because I'm just going to say this right now, this book does leave on sequel bait, but I do hope they end it right there. They end it at 3, because I don't want this to get, poison the well. Last Ronin was great. Lost Years, I sometimes debate if Lost Years or Last Ronin is my favorite of the franchise. And I was really excited to read this, but after reading it, I was like, okay, it's good. Let me be honest real quick. It's good. But I do have some problems with it. Anyway, so the story takes place 15 years after the events of Last Ronin. If you guys remember, Casey and April's daughter, Casey Marie, used mutagen mixed with Mikey's blood to give birth to create 4 new turtles to help protect New York City. The Foot Clan was destroyed by Michelangelo before leading to his death from his injuries, and in doing so, Casey is now taken upon herself to raise and train these turtles alongside an elderly April O'Neil. The comic takes place now, like I said, 15 years later, and the turtles are now Yi, Odin, Uno, and I forget the last one's name. Moja. That's it, Moja. The 4 turtles here depicted here are still young, and they're learning to train under Casey Marie as gang violence spirals out of control, and there's a darker turn going about. What I like about this comic is that the book really plays with a lot of Ninja Turtle lore, and I also like the fact that the new turtles themselves aren't specified in one weapon. They actually use all 4 weapons of the original 4 turtles. It's not like one uses this weapon or one uses that weapon. They trained in all 4 weapons, so each turtle has their own arsenal. They also have special abilities because of Michelangelo's enhanced radioactive blood. Which I think is kind of cool, but also I feel like they try a little too hard to differentiate them power-wise. The problem is, this is kind of my first problem with it, is that these turtles, even though they all look different and they all have special abilities, they don't feel different character-wise. You know what I mean? Face-wise, they all look very different, but character-wise, it doesn't feel like there's any real difference between them. No one has a very distinct no one feels like they don't have a distinct personality. It really does feel like it was substance and character, surface character over inside character. No one really has like their own. It doesn't feel like these four turtles have their own voice, and that can change. Like that could easily happen later, but like there's no real point to any of them. There's no real like, hey, and I know I'm not asking them to be like, I'm not asking these turtles to be like carbon copies of the original four. I'm not asking. In fact, I don't want that at all. But what I do want with them is like a feeling that they're all different. Here, they just feel all the same, and that kind of bothers me. And sometimes I even forgot what their names were. I forgot which turtle was which, even though they're four distinctly different turtles. Yeah. And this also feels more like Casey Marie's book. And don't get me wrong, Casey Marie's a great character, but it really does feel like the Ninja Turtles of this book feel ancillary sometimes to Casey Marie's story. And it is cool to see, like, her being a adopted mother to the Turtles. Also, talking with things with an elderly April, who in turn has brought back the Fugitoid, Zayton Honeycutt. And I like how they utilize him. The villains in here are kind of It's mainly a new version of the Purple Dragons, and there's also another villain I'm not going to talk about. And it does have a spoiler for, holy crap, the third book's going to be interesting and how they leave off. But this definitely feels more like Casey Marie's, and that's fine. I like Casey Marie's shown to be a capable character in her own right, but it kind of bothers me that like sometimes it feels like the Turtles themselves feel tertiary to the main story. And it also doesn't help that they don't feel like their own characters. They just feel like, look at this it sometimes feels like, look at this action figure, look at that action figure. And I know the Turtles are no stranger to capitalism. I'm very well aware. The problem is that, the difference is that at least the Turtles had their own personalities and their own wants and feelings. Here, these Turtles, like, where's the personality for each of these Turtles? I don't know. But yeah, having said all that, there's solid action. The artwork is pretty damn good. I also like the new character they have. Her name's Rose. She's going to be the new Rose Connor. She's like the new April, which I like. And it was cool. And it makes me wonder of like who else is going to show up in the third book, or should I say the fourth book, not counting the prequel. Makes me wonder: are we going to see like this universe's Krang or the Utrom in the next book, or are we going to see something else? Who knows? But yeah. This is probably the weakest, at least for me, of the Last Ronin books so far. But I do want to read book 3. I really do want to read book 3 to see where the story continues, and maybe they can fix things in the next book. At the same time, though, I don't want this to drag on too long. I don't want them to, like I said, poison the Last Ronin well and make this too long of a franchise. But we'll see what happens next. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Last Ronin 2. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.